A Dutch warship entered the West Philippine Sea. A Chinese military helicopter suddenly approached, and for several tense moments, the world watched closely. Behind this dramatic naval encounter lies a much bigger story involving China, the Philippines, Europe, rising military alliances, and a growing battle over control, law, and power in Asia's most dangerous waters. A Dutch warship has entered the West Philippine Sea, and the move is drawing attention far beyond Southeast Asia. The vessel did not arrive quietly. It sailed into one of the world's most contested maritime regions, carrying advanced missile defense systems, anti-submarine capabilities, high-end surveillance technology, and a message that many observers believe was impossible to ignore. This was not a routine naval stop. It was a strategic signal. The Royal Netherlands Navy frigate HNLMS De Ruyter recently arrived in Manila as part of the Netherlands' wider Indo-Pacific deployment mission known as Pacific Archer. The deployment reflects Europe's growing involvement in the Indo-Pacific at a time when tensions in the South China Sea continue to rise. The timing of the visit matters. Netherlands and the Philippines are marking 75 years of diplomatic relations, but instead of celebrating only through ceremonies and diplomatic speeches, the Dutch government sent one of its most advanced frigates into the region. That decision immediately changed the meaning of the visit. The HNLMS De Ruyter is not a ceremonial vessel. It is a highly capable air defense frigate designed for operations in dangerous and contested environments. The warship carries advanced radar systems capable of tracking airborne threats at long-range anti-submarine warfare systems, missile defense capabilities, and close-in weapon systems designed to intercept incoming threats at sea. On board is an NH-90 helicopter, a NATO-designed aircraft used for anti-submarine warfare, maritime surveillance, reconnaissance, and operational support. The helicopter significantly extends the frigate's reach across surrounding waters. This is not simply a patrol ship. It is a floating command and defense platform built for modern naval conflict environments. And now it has anchored in Manila Bay. As the frigate moved toward Philippine waters through the South China Sea, reports emerged that a Chinese military helicopter approached the vessel during transit. For a brief moment, the situation became tense. According to reports, the helicopter circled near the Dutch warship while monitoring its movement through contested waters. Military crews from both sides observed each other carefully in an area where even small misunderstandings can quickly become dangerous. Then communication took place. The Dutch crew identified themselves professionally. The Chinese helicopter eventually departed without escalation. No confrontation followed, but even that short encounter revealed how sensitive the West Philippine Sea has become. Commander Roger D. Witt of the Royal Netherlands Navy later described the encounter calmly while emphasizing the professionalism displayed during the interaction. "We were approached by a helicopter, but it was really professional on both sides," he said. "They just came to see who we were and left again." In another statement describing the exchange, he added, "They asked who we were, and we replied, and that was enough." Those few moments may appear minor to outside observers, but in the South China Sea, every military movement carries geopolitical significance. The commander also revealed the route taken by the frigate before arriving in Manila. According to reports, the vessel traveled east of Borneo through the Celebes Sea, crossed the Sulu Sea, moved south of Palawan, entered the South China Sea through the Balabac Strait, and eventually continued toward Manila Bay. That route itself highlights why the deployment matters. The West Philippine Sea sits inside one of the most strategically important maritime regions in the world. Nearly one-third of global maritime trade passes through the broader South China Sea. Shipping lanes connecting East Asia, Europe, and the Middle East rely heavily on uninterrupted access through these waters. Beneath the sea are rich fishing grounds, major oil reserves, and natural gas deposits that hold enormous economic value. For the Philippines, these resources are directly connected to local livelihoods, coastal communities, food security, and economic survival. China, however, continues to assert expansive territorial claims across much of the South China Sea, including areas claimed by the Philippines. Beijing has repeatedly rejected the 2016 arbitral ruling under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which invalidated many of China's sweeping maritime claims. The Philippines continues to uphold that ruling, and now foreign partners are increasingly showing visible support for Manila's legal position. The United States has expanded military cooperation and rotational deployments in the Philippines, Japan has deepened maritime security partnerships and defense coordination. Australia has increased joint patrols and military exercises. European countries, including France, Germany, the United Kingdom, and now the Netherlands, are also becoming more active in the Indo-Pacific. Each foreign naval deploy. One ref in Turing sends a message, and every warship entering Manila Bay reinforces the idea that the Philippines is not isolated in the maritime dispute. Dutch officials have openly framed the deployment around freedom of navigation, maritime law, and the protection of open trade routes. For the Netherlands, this is no longer viewed as a distant regional issue. European economies depend heavily on stable shipping routes through the Indo-Pacific, and any disruption in the South China Sea could affect global supply chains, energy markets, industrial exports, and maritime trade reaching Europe itself. That is why European governments are paying increasing attention to the region. The Dutch government has publicly emphasized that protecting a rules-based international order aligns directly with European strategic interests. And that explains why the Netherlands chose to deploy one of its most capable frigates to the Indo-Pacific. The deployment is not only diplomatic, it is strategic. Dutch Ambassador Mariel Gerrit also suggested that this visit may represent the beginning of deeper cooperation between the Netherlands and the Philippines. The frigate visit is the first step, she said, while discussing future maritime collaboration and defense engagement. That statement immediately attracted attention because it hinted at a potentially more sustained Dutch presence in the region. And for many observers, that reflects a larger geopolitical shift already underway. For years, many European nations viewed the Indo-Pacific mainly through the lens of trade and economics. Today, security concerns are becoming equally important. The South China Sea has increasingly become one of the world's major geopolitical fault lines. China has steadily expanded its regional presence through naval patrols, Coast Guard operations, and the construction of military-capable artificial islands on disputed reefs. These facilities now include airstrips, radar systems, military infrastructure, and logistical support networks. Critics argue that these developments have permanently altered the strategic landscape of the region. Supporters of the Philippines say visible international support is therefore critical. They argue that international law cannot survive through diplomatic statements alone. According to that view, rules must also be defended visibly through presence, partnership, and sustained engagement. That is why the arrival of foreign warships in Manila carries symbolic and political importance far beyond a simple port visit for many Filipino fishermen operating near disputed waters. The issue is deeply personal. Fishing communities have repeatedly reported encounters with foreign Coast Guard vessels and restrictions on access to traditional fishing areas. Some local fishermen have described feeling vulnerable while operating inside contested maritime zones. For those communities, the arrival of a Dutch frigate in Manila Bay is not just a geopolitical event, it is visible proof that powerful nations are paying attention to developments in the West Philippine Sea. Still, not everyone views these deployments positively. Some analysts warn that increasing foreign military presence could raise the risk of accidental escalation. They argue that every additional warship operating near disputed waters increases the possibility of misunderstanding or confrontation. In heavily militarized environments, even small incidents can quickly become dangerous. That is why the professionalism shown during the helicopter encounter became such an important part of the story. According to reports, both sides acted with restraint. Communication remained calm, operational procedures were followed carefully. Military observers say this type of discipline is essential in contested waters. Technology alone cannot prevent conflict. Modern warships may carry sophisticated radar systems and missile defense capabilities, but judgment, communication, and operational restraint remain equal. Why important? The sailors aboard HNLMS Durute understand that reality clearly. Their mission involves balancing deterrence, diplomacy, and professionalism in one of the world's most politically sensitive maritime regions. That balancing act now defines much of the Indo-Pacific security environment. The Philippines wants to strengthen international partnerships without triggering direct confrontation. China wants to maintain and expand regional influence. Western nations want to support freedom of navigation while avoiding escalation. Each naval deployment becomes part of that broader strategic equation. Supporters of the Dutch mission argue that sustained international presence helps reinforce stability by creating transparency and predictability. They believe regular naval cooperation reduces uncertainty and discourages unilateral actions in disputed waters. Critics counter that growing military activity from multiple powers could gradually normalize confrontation in the region, but its arguments carry weight. But what cannot be ignored is the larger transformation taking place. The Indo-Pacific has become the center of global strategic competition, and the West Philippine Sea now sits at the center of that contest. This is no longer simply about fishing rights or territorial boundaries. It is about the future of international maritime law, regional power balance, freedom of navigation, and the rules that govern one of the world's most important waterways. The Netherlands clearly understands that reality. That is why this deployment matters beyond a single diplomatic anniversary. Officials have already indicated that additional regional port calls and engagements are expected under the Pacific Archer mission. More naval coordination, more strategic cooperation, and more diplomatic engagement are likely in the coming months. For the Philippines, these partnerships provide diplomatic leverage, operational coordination, and visible international support. For Europe, I represent growing recognition that Indo-Pacific security directly affects global economic stability. And for China, every foreign naval deployment in the South China Sea becomes another reminder that the maritime dispute is increasingly viewed as an international issue rather than a purely regional disagreement. The HNLMS De Ruyter continues its mission now, sailing through waters where sovereignty, military power, and international law collide almost daily. Its message is not written in speeches, it is written in presence. It is written in radar systems scamming contested seas, in sailors operating professionally under pressure, and in the decision of a European nation to project naval power thousands of miles from home into one of the world's most strategically sensitive maritime regions. The larger question, however, remains unresolved. Can sustained naval partnerships and professional engagement actually prevent conflict in the West Philippine Sea? Or does the growing number of warships entering the region slowly increase the risk of confrontation? That debate is shaping the future of the Indo-Pacific right now. And the answer is still being written one deployment, one encounter, and one port call at a time.